Hello and welcome back to another episode of 0 to 60. And you've probably worked it out from the thumbnail, but this episode is on BMW car stereos, in particular the Alpha One speaker system from Bimmertech. And I'm calling it a system because the way that Alpha One or Bimmertech are doing this, they're supplying an audio system to suit your vehicle, and then it's coming tuned to suit your vehicle as well, which is a very big deal. A lot of people don't realize why such low power car systems from the manufacturers sound so good, and it's because they are tuned to suit that vehicle. You'll go and buy an aftermarket stereo from a car shop, put some 6x9s or some 6-inch speakers in the car, it'll be hugely powerful. Like, you might have a 500 watt RMS system and it won't sound as good as a 100 watt RMS system that's done from the factory, and it's all in tuning. It's tuning the speakers to suit the boxes or the cavities in the doors, or under the seats in this case, and then tuning the sound that comes out so that you don't get any weird reflections or deflections of audio. It's crazy what they can do with a small amount of power when it's an OEM system, and Bimmertech are basically using the same principles to put this kit together. Now, before we talk about what this kit is, I want to bring up the fact that there is a million YouTubers reviewing these Alpha One systems from Bimmertech. Shout out to Bimmertech for supporting YouTubers. I really do appreciate it, and I think it's what's going to keep us making YouTube videos. But a lot of the guys doing the videos don't really know what they're talking about. In fact, I haven't found a review where anyone really understands why this is a good system, how they can compare it to anything else or anything. They put it in and go, yeah, it sounds really good. But at the end of the day, that is the effect that Bimmertech wanted to go for, because this in particular is quite a high level piece of gear with a huge amount of customization. And I know people that have bought similar products and they just never get them set up properly, and then they wonder why their stereo doesn't sound very good. Where Bimmertech are taking that risk away from you. They're doing all the setup with this level of high quality gear, and they're making it work in your car without you needing to be an audiophile or understand how to tune it, and that is a pretty good thing. So before we get into that system and the ins and outs and what makes it good and why I'm quite impressed with it, let's talk about the factory systems and try and get an understanding of aftermarket versus factory. So let's be real, we're an E9X channel here, but E8X, E9Xs, and it is pretty similar in the F-Series systems from what I've read. However, the base model systems have such little power, it's crazy. So we don't really get many of the mask systems here, but the base model mask system is the most powerful of the three base model systems. It has 40 watts per channel. I don't think I've ever seen an E90 in Australia that has it. The most common one we get is the base model CCC unit. That has 25 watts per channel, but there is also an even worse system, which is the radio system at 4 times 15 watts. So all relatively small numbers, all only 4 channels, but the way they do it, they actually split the audio into 6 speakers. So the base model cars have a speaker in each corner or speaker in each door or the parcel shelf, depending on the chassis. And then they also have a mid bass under the seat, but it's quite a small mid bass. It's only 160 millimeters, where these are 220 mil, to give you a bit of an idea. But those 4 channels are split over 6 speakers. BMW do it in a clever way, so it doesn't cause any issues with ohmage or ohms, but it works and it sounds incredible for such a low power system. Now, the mid-level cars, they are called hi-fi, and that's what's actually in my E91. So it uses the same audio source, whether it's the basic stereo or the mask system or the CCC unit, I haven't gotten all this right, and then it sends those 4 channels to an amplifier in the back of the car. Now that amplifier, it's not a smart amplifier, it's not a dumb amplifier, it's still doing a fair bit of work. It's taking those 4 channels in and converting it into 6 channels out. So that's got a channel for each speaker in the corner, where it's a mid bass and the tweeters, and then it's got a separate 2 channels for the subwoofers, and they pump a load of extra power into the subwoofers. The factory hi-fi system has 25 watts going to each corner of the car, and then 40 watts going to each subwoofer. Now keep in mind, on the base models, the subs, or the mid-basses that are under the seats, have to share the 25 watts with the door speakers as well. So the hi-fi system has a hell of a lot more punch than the entry-level system. And there's also some clever filtering going on with the signal that is sent to the speakers under the seat or the subwoofers. So the hi-fi system is a huge jump. However, this is going to take it even further. Now, there is another system that is called, well, I always call it Logic 7, but it's actually officially referred to as Top Hi-Fi, and it works on the same principles. The CCC unit, or whatever unit you've got in the dashboard, that's still doing the majority of the signal processing, whether you're connecting your phone to it or playing the radio, whatever, and then it sends a signal to an amplifier in the boot. However, unlike the other system, which uses 4 channels of analog audio going to the boot, The Logic 7 system, or the top hi-fi, is actually a fiber optic system, so it gets a digital signal sending it to the amplifier, and what that really means is you've got a chance of getting clearer audio to the amplifier before the amplifier does its work on the audio. Now, the other thing with that system, the Logic 7 system has a different speaker configuration and a more powerful amplifier. So from memory, the 1 series, they have two 70-watt subwoofers, and then they have 6 times 25 watts that go around to the other speakers in the car. The E90, or the 3 series vehicles with the Logic 7, they have an additional channel, so they've still got the two 70-watt subwoofers, but they then also have 7 channels at 25 watts because they also have a center speaker. And I've always found it interesting that the top of the range 3 and 5 series, they run center channels for their audio system, where if you get into any high-end audio, none of those guys use a center channel. It's always 2 channels, left and right, and then that creates the soundstage, and that's what real audio guys want. If you go and spend $100,000 on a home hi-fi system, it's 2 channels. That's how you get the best soundstage. And something I want to talk about just quickly before we go into this, the best way to experience a car stereo is if you can close your eyes and picture the music, picture the band playing on your bonnet. So it sounds like they're in front of the windscreen, and then you get left and right fading depending on if there's a guitar playing or someone singing. That's when you've got the soundstage set up properly, but not a lot of people do that. Most people just crank up the bass and turn the windows down. Who's going to buy a Bimmertech system? Because it is quite expensive, and in my opinion, I think if you've got a Logic 7 system, in fact, a Logic 7 E90 is a really good sounding system. I don't think this is going to be a huge upgrade for you, but anyone that's got the lower systems, so the hi-fi, like what's in my E91, or even the base model, this is a no-brainer. This stuff is really, really good. And why would you want to go for this over other types of aftermarket stuff? Now, there are a few different companies that sell a very similar product to this. Bavsound is one of them. Bimmertech are the other ones that are sort of BMW specific, but you can get these for full universal applications, and then you can also get them basically in a raw format that'll still plug into a BMW, but you've got to do all the programming. Now, one thing I really like about Bimmertech, I mean, Bavsound do it as well. Bavsound supply a very similar amplifier that you plug into your car, but Bimmertech are so in-depth with custom coding and a lot more of the software side of owning a BMW than you can imagine. And I think that really puts them a step ahead when it comes to tuning an amplifier. I've got a good friend of mine who he's literally spent 2 years decoding F-series stereos. So basically all the different amplifiers, the different ways that the MBT units, the CCC units can output audio, different equalizers. He's played with all that sort of stuff. And it's taken him so much time, and I know that Bimmertech will have that knowledge as well, but having that knowledge is what makes it much easier to set up a system that will actually work in the chassis. Because it's one thing to buy good quality speakers, but if they're too big, if they're designed to be in a much stronger box than you can manage out of a standard car door, they're just never going to work properly. They're going to hit way too hard for that door to reflect the sound into the cabin, and it's just not going to work. Where Bimmertech, they've developed all this to be so easy, so plug and play, it just makes sense. Now, you can buy these speaker packages here, and they come separately. We've obviously got all the door speakers here with the tweeters for the E91. If you have an E90, you get a kit that has a center channel and then rear tweeters as well, but I don't have that. And then you can also get the subwoofer package here. Now, when I first opened these, they do look gorgeous. We've got nice billet aluminium and all that sort of stuff. But you realise that it's not a massive speaker. It's not very heavy. They are using neodymium magnets, and the latest generation, I shouldn't say latest generation, the newer ranges of Alpine Type R speakers, they went to a neodymium magnet as well. Back in my car stereo days, the speakers were always really, really heavy, but then these neodymium things started popping up, and they managed to get the weight right down without losing performance. The benefit of that is the magnet is lighter, so it performs just as well with less power. And it's one thing to have a huge speaker, but then you've got to have a huge amount of power to drive that speaker, where these have been made in a way by Bimmertech that you can run this on a factory amp. It won't run as good as this amp, but you can run it on a factory amp and it will sound better than the factory speakers, and the same with the door speakers as well. That's the way this kit is designed. It will work with a factory amp, but, in my opinion, the amp is where you need to upgrade. The amp is the thing you need to do first. All the other videos that I've seen, the guys have just chucked everything in their car and then spoken about how much better the whole package is. And I've got no doubts that the whole package will sound brilliant. But I think if you've got good conditioned door speakers, maybe you don't need it. So let me go and get this installed in the car and we'll see how it goes. And I do just want to say again, this is an incredibly expensive piece of kit. You can buy different versions of this amplifier. They all cost the same amount, but this is not a cheap thing. And I kind of feel like the way that Alpha One have marketed it, it gets marketed as a cheap product, but it is not. It is a very customizable piece of kit, but Bimmertech Alpha One, they're doing the customizing for you, which is really, really good. However, maybe I'll play with it later on once I get the software set up, but you shouldn't have to. I do also like that we have got optical input, so if we want to go full audiophile and have a digital audio source going into it, we can. I never will because I can't afford those things, but you can get proper high definition audio players that can connect straight to this. It bypasses the CCC, it bypasses the CIC doing the sound processing, and you will get a much clearer sound. We also have a single line output there if we want to go really crazy and add some 12-inch subs into the back one day. We can do all that. So this is also expandable beyond how Bimmertech promote it, which is weird they do it that way. But anyway, let me get it in the car and I'll tell you if it's any better than the factory one. But I know it's going to be. My factory amplifier currently sits at around 400 watts, where this is 70 watts. The power going to the subwoofers is nearly double. We've got 160 watts going to each of the subwoofers, and then I think 40 watts going to each of the door speakers. So a huge upgrade on not only the hi-fi that's in the car, but it's even much more powerful than the Logic 7 amp. I can't remember if I mentioned it, but something that is good about the Logic 7 amp is you can adjust the equalizer settings from the dashboard, which you can't do with a hi-fi system. This has way more customizable options than the Logic 7, and luckily, as I keep saying, Bimmertech Alpha One, they've gone through and set it all up for you. Let me put that in the car, we'll see how it sounds. I want to do it in 2 steps. I want to see how much better the amp sounds, and then we'll go through and do the speakers. On the same note, if you have sun damaged speakers where they've dried out, where things not working very good, even in the Logic 7 systems, adding these speakers should be a good upgrade over the factory ones. At the end of the day, the factory stuff was designed 20 years ago. This is newer technology, it will work better. But let me get the amp in. The amp's what I want to talk about, the amp's the big deal. Let me get it in. I'll see you shortly. Okay, so we're nearly there with the installation. We've got the Alpha One amp with its base plate, I guess, which is made to suit the original amp rack, and you can see it sort of all fits up there. Let's slide that down in there and get it all mounted up. Now, because I'm not going nuts with this system, I don't really need to connect anything else. Alpha One or Bimmertech supply this cable which adapts the factory wiring harness into the amp and connects everything that needs to be connected to the amplifier slash DSP. That's the old unit, so it's actually smaller, even though we are putting out a lot more power than the original one, but we are also, I guess, 20 years newer than the original one, so it's no surprise. I'm going to get that mounted in. I'm going to have a quick listen to it and see what I think of it, run a few songs that I normally use to test car stereos through it, and I'll give you an opinion shortly. Actually, I did end up just connecting the USB cable, so that is connected to the amp if I do need to change any settings, but I guess the idea is that I won't need to. Anyway, she's all tucked back in. I'm going to put the whole interior back in, just so that we can listen to it how the car is going to be when we use the car, not when it's all apart. So I've had a bit of a change of plan. I actually filmed an entire outro. I have a playlist that I use on Spotify, and I'll put a link to that playlist in the description. It's normally what I use to tune stereos. It's a mix of older music that was recorded in a way that really captures a lot more of the frequency of audio. I got that list from an audiophile forum that I was in 2018 when I was tuning an X5 stereo that I spent way too much money on. And I went through and I played with this amp yesterday for well over an hour, listening to that entire playlist, then listening to some of my favorite songs, and I wanted to show you guys all that stuff. Edited the video, put it online, and YouTube blocked it. 4 or 5 of the songs that I was playing, I was aware that I wasn't going to be able to monetize the video, which I wasn't worried about, but yeah, they block it in a lot of countries, so we're gonna have to do the typical no copyright music thing. However, that has given me a bit more time to play with the amplifier. So the amp is tucked down, hopefully you can see, tucked down in there, and I've actually installed the Audio Fisher DSP tool, which is the tool that actually tunes the amp or the DSP. And you guys have probably worked it out. It's Audio Fisher that make this unit. I hope Bimmertech don't mind me saying that, but I think it adds a lot of credibility to the quality of what this product is. And anyway, I've gone through the preloaded maps, tune files. We'll call it a tune file for the DSP that Bimmertech provide. Now, it comes with 4 preloaded maps, and obviously if you're a retail customer, Bimmertech will do all this while you sit in the driver's seat and you can just enjoy and tell them which one you prefer the best. But basically it comes with maps to suit the standard speakers and then the Bimmertech speakers. And right now I've got it on map 1. It come preloaded with map 3, which is obviously for the Bimmertech speakers because that was the package that I got. But on map 1, this thing with standard speakers is incredible. So this car is just hi-fi. And I've been playing with it now, and it shakes the roof. The roof starts rattling with standard speakers. Anyway, I'm going to start playing now. I've got bass maxed on the CIC. We'll shut this down. And actually, you can watch all the channels with this software. I know the GoPro's not going to record the screen very well, but the subs are working at the moment. You can see this is why it really enhances the bass so much. This software, or the tune file, is set up to really amplify the bass. And let's be real, bass is what modern music's all about. Anyway, we'll sit in. So we're maxed, and we're at maximum volume. It's so loud. That's the end of the song. Let's make sure we get... Hopefully this is also copyright free. Bit of guitar, bit of real instrument.
Yeah, I spit raps like a heart attack. Fast fatal heart impacts, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and past. I back up my actions, back don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word and act with highs as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't boss, I'm finding loose. Pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're just freaked out. Get ready for defeat now, I'm gonna make you bleed out. Listen on repeat now and read out all the weak now. Get up and make a change, don't remember yesterday. If you got something to say, speak your mind before your grave, cause your life is yours to save. Ain't nobody gonna change, everybody stays.
And that's just, it's a lot of volume.
I keep on moving forward, always getting closer, marching till it's over, and just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward.
Bass! I'll try another song. I don't know what these songs are, although I use them in videos every now and again. I've got a rattle. Could be a damaged tweeter. Something's rattling.
Girl, you got me shook from the way your body looks. Got me riding hooks, got me feeling like a rook. I don't do it by the book, but for you I'll take a look. Don't know what your mama took, sweet and spicy like a cook, yeah. I'll keep it real, let's make a deal. Buy you a meal if you just let me feel. Get out your heels, grab on the wheel. Back to my place at the top of the hill. Don't have regrets, I know what's next. She need a fresh, I'll be back in a sec. Look at the legs, don't make me beg. Back to the room, let me show you my bed.
So, what I went through in yesterday's video, the one that I've had to edit out, this thing has added an incredible amount of volume and power to the standard speakers. I don't know if Bimmertech wanted me to talk about how good the amp is. However, honestly, if you've got a good conditioned set of speakers in your hi-fi system, the car's just gone to sleep. If you've got a good conditioned set of hi-fi speakers, I don't think you would ever need to upgrade the speakers. That sounds so much better than a Logic 7 system. I need to have a listen to a Bang & Olufsen system because I can't believe how hard that's hitting. It's giving me 12-inch sub in the boot vibes, so much bass. And going through the software, they're doing a lot of work to only send frequencies to each speaker that they're going to be able to handle. And I think that's what's crucial and why it allows it to have so much more volume with the standard speakers. I know some people will put an aftermarket amp that's not as clever as this sort of thing in there. And they'll send that amp a raw signal, but then that raw signal gets put back out to the speakers, and they might have crossovers in the doors and that sort of thing. But generally they just send everything to the subs. But this is only sending signals to these speakers that work in this car, if that makes sense. So they're not trying to make the door speakers output a frequency that doesn't work in this enclosure here. And the same with the subs in the floor. I had a look at the frequency cutoffs and how they've tuned it. They've done it really cleverly. Obviously they've done it with some sort of listening device. I do notice that if I run full bass on some songs, and that's the bass in the tone section of the CIC that I can change. If I run full bass, it will take it beyond what this DSP wants to process, because obviously the DSP wants to process a raw, unmolested signal from the CIC, and then it's doing all the processing. So if I do processing on the CIC, it will take it to a level that just sort of, it loses bass. I'll turn the bass down on the CIC and then it'll come back in. But man, it is incredible. So something else, I don't think I mentioned it with those 4 maps that are on the DSP at the moment, or the amp. They are designed for standard speakers and the Bimmertech speakers. The Bimmertech speakers tune files, they don't sound as clear. So they're doing something in the tune to make these tweeters and these door speakers sound clearer than they would normally. Again, very, very clever what Bimmertech have done and how they've tuned this thing. I think it is a much higher level piece of equipment than a lot of people realize. It's more than I realized until I started playing with it. My friend JB, the guy that owns the 1M, he actually had a similar, the older generation unit to this in his F30. This was a few years ago now. He is an audio freak. Yeah, I think he's up to about 30 or 40,000. JB, correct me in the comments how much you've spent on your 1M stereo now, but he's going to the utmost pinnacle of stereo setups. I think he spent like 40 grand. Yes, $40,000 on a stereo, something weird. Sorry. But he was saying this DSP unit is the single best thing you can do to a hi-fi system. And after hearing what it's done to this system, I'm blown away. The sad thing is I now need to buy one for the other hi-fi system car that I currently own. Because this is wild. It's so much more power, clearer than a Logic 7. We've got less speakers. Yeah. Anyway, I guess I should really install the Bimmertech speakers and then see if it goes up another level again. But I can't see it happening. You'll see that in the next video. We'll see if the Bimmertech speakers are also worth the money, but the amp is a no-brainer. If you have a hi-fi system, get the amp. If you have a Logic 7 system, sorry that you can't use this amp. But I think Bimmertech, they're working on a solution for the fiber optic or the MOST bus amplifiers as well. So hopefully they'll have a solution for the Logic 7 cars soon. But yeah, just getting some decent power into the speakers makes a huge difference. And I was trying to work out why BMW don't do this. And I guess at the end of the day, this current amplifier is this Bimmertech amplifier is about twice as powerful as the Hi-Fi and about a third more powerful than the Logic 7 amplifier. And it's like, why don't BMW just do that? Well, at the end of the day, these cars, these stereos were probably designed by BMW 20 years ago now, like 2000, 2002 time. And the cost of making an amplifier that's as powerful as the Bimmertech one, I bet would have been astronomical. And these stereos, the base model original stereos, not the base, but the stereos these come with, the Hi-Fi, the top Hi-Fi, they would have been very expensive stereos back then, and I guess for BMW to do something at this level, it would have been ridiculous. It probably also would have, I don't know, this is so much power for the money, and it's so small. It's clever what they're doing with amps these days. My first amp that was this sort of power was like nearly a meter long. Yeah, this is a 1400 watt amp, and it's in a little box. It's crazy. All right, guys, enough nattering. This is a proper, no, it's not a proper one obviously, but it is a promoted video from Bimmertech. There is a code, which if you're thinking about buying it, please use the 0 to 60 code, just so Bimmertech know that you guys watch it and watch this video. It is 15% off for Christmas. And also if you buy the full package, which I'm not going to recommend yet, I might recommend that in the next video, we'll see how we go. If you buy the full package, you also get a free toolkit. If you have older speakers, if they're sun damaged, which happens a lot, they dry out, the foam on the cones dry out. If that's happening, just replace your speakers. It's going to be well worth the money. But on the same note, if you've got a good condition stereo, adding the amp is incredible. Guys, I'm blown away with how loud this thing is. It's wild. All right, guys, thank you very much, and I will catch you on the next one.
Girl, you got me shook from the way you body looks. Got me riding hooks, got me feeling like a rook. I don't do it by the book.
It sounds like a 12-inch sub. I don't get it. Playing a royalty-free trailer music because it's got a good bass, but it's so much bass for a standard stereo. But then the violin or something kicked in, and that is incredibly, it's almost uncomfortably loud.